Hey guys, tonight we begin with Therity, smoky, and slightly sticky world off the medieval tavern. The unsung heart of every town, the unofficial news center, and the only place where at night, a farmer and a bard could all get equally drunk and equally robbed. It wasn't just a place to drink. It was a place where danger, laughter, and disease mingled freely beneath a thatched roof. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let know in the comments where you're rating in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around Fuel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn in a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The wind howled like a mourner's wail as I, Lysa, stood trembling at the edge of my village, the place I'd once called home. Now a fading echo behind me. Dawn had barely broken, its frail light clawing through a sky heavy with bruise-colored clouds, casting jagged shadows over the dirt path that stretched into the void. My hands gripped the fraying strap of my pack, knuckles white, as if it were the last tether to a life I was abandoning. I wasn't running from something, I was running toward it, though what it was remained a ghost in my mind, a whisper I couldn't catch. The road ahead vanished into a swirling mist, thick and alive, curling like fingers beckoning me into its depths. Each step I took was a defiance, a scream against the silence that had smothered me for years. And yet my heart thudded with a terror so raw, it felt like it might split me open. This was no simple journey. This was a descent into the unknown, a pilgrimage to a place I'd heard of only in hushed tones, the Heart's Rest, a tavern said to hold more than ale and firelight, a place where the air itself thrummed with secrets. Yorkshire dales unfurled before me, wild and unforgiving, a tapestry of gnarled trees and windswept hills that seemed to pulse with a life older than memory. The ground beneath my boots was soft and treacherous, mud sucking at my heels as if the earth itself conspired to pull me back. The air stung my lungs, sharp with the scent of pine and the faint rot of fallen leaves, while overhead, a raven's cry sliced through the stillness a warning, or perhaps a welcome. I walked on, my breath fogging in the chill, each exhale a small surrender to the journey. The forest closed in around me, branches clawing at my cloak like skeletal hands, and the light dimmed, swallowed by the canopy. It was beautiful, yes, but it was a beauty that gnawed at you, that dared you to look deeper and see what hid beneath. I wondered if I was mad to leave the safety of my village, the predictability of days spent weaving wool and tending hearths. But safety had become a cage, its bars forged from routine and resignation, and the longing that burned in me now was a fire I could no longer douse. The hours bled into one another, the sun a weak smear behind the clouds, offering no warmth, only a reminder of time slipping away. My legs ached, my shoulders bowed under the weight of my pack, but I pressed forward, driven by a hunger I couldn't name. At a bend in the path, I stumbled upon a stream, its waters rushing over stones. With a sound like a sigh, I knelt, cupping the icy liquid in my hands, and drank deeply, the cold biting my throat. When I looked up, I caught my reflection in the rippling surface-pale skin, streaked with dirt, eyes wide and haunted, hair tangled like a nest of thorns. Who was this woman staring back at me? Not the Lysa who'd mended skirts and nodded politely to neighbors. This was someone new, someone breaking free or breaking apart. I rose, wiping my hands on my skirts, and resumed my march, the stream's song fading behind me. Like a memory I couldn't hold dotted, was then I met him a shepherd, his figure emerging from the mist like a specter. He stood atop a rise, staff in hand, his face carved by wind and years into a map of creases and scars. His flock scattered across the hillside, bleeding faintly, but his gaze was fixed on me, piercing and unreadable. "Off to the Heart's Rest, are you?" he rasped, his voice gravelly yet laced with something warm, almost pitying structural steel. I nodded, my tongue thick with nerves, unable to muster a reply before he stepped closer. "It's a place of shadows, lass," he said, leaning on his staff, his eyes glinting with a strange light. "Some go in seeking answers, but not all come out the same." A chill raced down my spine, not from the wind, but from the weight of his words. What did he mean? What awaited me there? I managed a shaky "thank you" before hurrying past, his warning coiling in my chest like a snake, tightening with every step. The mist thickened, the world shrinking to the path beneath my feet, and the questions clawing at my mind as evening descended. The dales transformed into a realm of gold and shadow, the hills glowing under a sky streaked with fire. The air grew heavy with the scent of wood smoke, a promise of warmth that quickened my pace. My legs trembled, but anticipation drowned out exhaustion as I crested the final hill. There it was, the Heart's Rest. It loomed at the edge of a clearing, its timber walls dark with age, its thatched roof sagging under the weight of countless winters. A weathered sign swung above the door, a heart with antlers raised proud, creaking in the breeze. Light spilled from the windows, golden and alive, painting the ground in shifting patterns. Laughter drifted out, mingling with the snap of a fire I couldn't yet see. My breath caught, my chest tightening with a mix of awe and dread. This was no mere tavern. It was a beacon, a living heart beating in the wilderness, and I was a moth drawn to its flame. What stories hid within those walls? What truths would it demand of me? I stood frozen, the wind tugging at my cloak, until the pull became unbearable. I took a step forward, then another, the door groaning open beneath my touch. The heat hit me like a wave, wrapping me in the mingled sense of smoke, sweat, and roasted meat. The room swam in a haze of light and shadow, candles flickering on scarred tables, their flames dancing to a rhythm I couldn't hear. Rough-hewn, beams stretched overhead, blackened by time, while the floor bore the polish of 1,000 footsteps. A woman stood behind the counter, her presence a force unto itself. Gwenna, I'd later learn, the keeper of this place. Her hair was a cascade of dark waves threaded with silver, her eyes sharp as a hawk's, cutting through the dimness to find me. "Lost, are you?" she asked, her voice a low growl, softened by a hint of amusement. I shook my head, fumbling. For a coin and requested cider, my words barely audible over the din. She slid a mug across the wood, the liquid gleaming like molten gold, and I retreated to a corner near the hearth. Its warmth seeping into my bones. The tavern pulsed with life. A cluster of merchants huddled in one corner, their voices rising and falling as they recounted tales of treacherous roads and hard-won deals. A fiddler sat perched on a stool, her bow coaxing a melody from the strings wild and mournful. It wove through the air, tugging at something deep within me. I sipped the cider, its sweetness sharp against my tongue, and let my eyes wander. The walls were alive with shadows, the faces around me a gallery of strangers, each one a story I'd yet to hear. A bowl of stew arrived, steaming and fragrant, its broth thick with barley and herbs. I tore into the bread beside it, the crust shattering under my fingers, and ate slowly, savoring the way it anchored me to this moment. This wasn't just a meal, it was a ritual, a welcome to a world I'd only glimpsed in dreams. A man slid onto the bench across from me, his grin wide and unguarded. Tobin, he called himself, a carpenter with hands rough as bark and a laugh that filled the space between us. "Ever tried carving?" he asked, producing a knife and a scrap of wood from his bag. I shook my head, and he pressed them into my palms, his enthusiasm contagious. "Give it a go," he urged, guiding my clumsy cuts until a shape emerged. Bird, crooked and crude, but mine. Pride flickered in me, small but bright, and I pocketed the carving as he clapped my shoulder, his approval a spark in the dimness. The night unfolded in bursts of sound, and motion dice clattered in a game. Of chance, the fiddler's tune quickened into a jig, and I found myself swept into a dance, my feet stumbling until they found the beat. The tavern was a storm of life, and I was caught in its center, breathless and alive. Morning crept in, gray and damp, but the fire held the cold at bay. I lingered over porridge sweetened with honey, watching Gwenna move with a grace born of habit, her hands deft as she tended the hearth. She caught my gaze and beckoned me to a shadowed corner, lifting a plank to reveal a trapdoor. My pulse raced as I followed her down a ladder into a cellar, the air thick with the scent of earth and age. She lit a lantern, and the shadows parted to reveal stone tablets etched with runes, their edges worn by time. "Monks hid here once," she murmured, her voice reverent. "This place has seen more than most." I touched the carvings, feeling the weight of their silence, and listened as she spoke of the tavern's past, a sanctuary for the lost, a keeper of their echoes. It was a revelation, a thread connecting me to something vast and unbroken. Back in the light, I saw the Heart's Rest anew. Tapestries hung faded on the walls, their scenes of hunts and feasts a whisper of forgotten days. I joined a circle of storytellers, their voices weaving tales of nights and storms, and added my own, a childhood fable of a fox chasing a star. The sharing bound us, a fragile bridge across the unknown, and I felt the tavern's pulse beneath it all, steady and eternal. Later I wandered outside, the rain a fine mist against my skin, and sat by a stream, its rush a mirror to my thoughts. The Heart's Rest had cracked me open, shown me the beauty in the frayed edges of life, and I knew I'd carry it with me, a light for the roads ahead. 3 days passed like a dream, each moment a stitch in a pattern I couldn't yet see. But the road called, and I packed under a sky streaked with dawn, Gwenna pressing herbs into my hands with a quiet, "Keep your fire, Lysa." I hugged her, memorizing the tavern's silhouette, the heart sign swaying, the smoke curling skyward. I said farewell to Tobin and the others, their faces etched in my mind, and stepped into the dales, the fiddler's tune fading behind me. The journey had changed me, taught me to seek the stories in every shadow, and as I walked on, the Heart's Rest stood as a promise that there are places where the world still sings, if you're brave enough to listen. If this tale has hooked you, stirred your heart, or left you hungry for more, subscribe to our channel. Let's explore the wonders of history together, one story at a time. The Heart's Rest was a living thing, its walls thrumming with the heartbeat of 100 souls pressed together in the flickering glow of firelight. I, Lysa, sat on a worn bench near the hearth, my fingers still tingling from the cider's sharp bite, my heart racing from the sheer vitality of the place. The air was heavy with the scent of wood smoke, roasted meat, and the faint sweetness of spilled mead, a perfume that wrapped around me like a cloak, both comforting and disorienting. The tavern was no mere shelter from the Yorkshire dales. Biting wind. It was a crucible where strangers became kin, where stories wove themselves into the very beams overhead. I'd arrived weary and uncertain, but now, as the noise of laughter and clinking mugs filled my ears, I felt a spark ignite within me, a hunger to know this world, to be part of its rhythm, to let it reshape the quiet woman I'd been. Gwenna, the tavern's keeper, moved through the chaos with a grace that belied her stern demeanor. Her silver-streaked hair caught the candlelight as she poured ale with a flick of her wrist, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk's, missing nothing. She was the axis around which the Heart's Rest turned, her voice cutting through the din, to settle disputes or call for more firewood. I watched her, marveling at the way she held this place together, her presence a blend of motherly warmth and unyielding authority. When our eyes met, she nodded, a silent acknowledgement that I was no longer just a stranger passing through. I clutched my mug, the clay warm against my palms, and let the tavern's energy pull me in. The crowd was a tapestry of lives, each thread vibrant and distinct. A group of merchants in one corner argued over the price of wool from York, their hands gesturing wildly, coins glinting in the dim light. A young woman with a fiddle stood near the counter, her music weaving through the noise a melody that started soft, like a whisper of spring, then surged into a lively reel that set feet tapping. Her name, I learned, was Ellen, and her bow danced across the strings with a passion that made my chest ache. I sipped my cider, its tartness grounding me, and felt the music sink into my bones, stirring memories of home nights by the fire, my mother humming as she spun wool. But this was different, wilder, a sound that belonged to the here and now, to this place where boundaries blurred and strangers shared a fleeting kinship. Hunger tugged at my stomach, and I caught Gwenna's eye, signaling for food. She brought a wooden bowl filled with a steaming stew, its surface shimmering with fat, chunks of lamb and root vegetables swimming in a broth thickened with barley. Beside it came a hunk of bread, its crust dark and chewy, flecked with grains that crunched between my teeth. I tore into it, the flavors earthy and robust, a reminder of the land's generosity. "This is what keeps us going," Gwenna said, leaning against the counter. "No fancy spices, just what the fields give." I nodded, savoring the warmth spreading through me, and thought of the labor behind each bite, the farmers who tilled the soil, the millers who ground the grain, the hands that shaped this bread. In a world where clean water was a gamble, where rivers carried disease as often as they carried life, meals like this were a small miracle, a testament to survival. I ate slowly, letting the act anchor me, and felt a quiet reverence for the simplicity of it all. Tobin, the carpenter I'd met the night before, slid onto the bench beside me, his grin as bright as the fire. His hands, rough and calloused, bore the marks of his trade, and his eyes sparkled with mischief. "Made anything new with that knife yet?" he asked, referencing the bird I'd carved under his guidance. I shook my head, laughing, and he pulled out a fresh piece of wood, this time a smooth sliver of oak. "Try again," he said, his voice warm with encouragement. I hesitated, then let the blade glide, shaving curls that fell like petals to the floor. Tobin watched, offering pointers with a patience that felt like a gift. The wood took shape a crude fish, its curves uneven but alive, and I held it up, a flush of pride warming my cheeks. "You've got a knack," Tobin said, clapping me on the shoulder, and I tucked the carving beside the bird in my pocket. A small piece of this night to carry with me. The tavern's rhythm shifted as the evening deepened. Ellen's fiddle gave way to a group of locals chanting a work song, their voices rough but harmonious, singing of harvests and long days in the fields. I joined in, fumbling the words but caught up in the melody, my voice blending with theirs. It was a moment of unity, a reminder that music here wasn't just entertainment. It was a thread that stitched people together, a way to share burdens and joys. Then, a new activity caught my eye. A woman named Agnes, her hands stained with dye, stood at a table, demonstrating how to weave a simple braid from wool scraps. "Come try," she called, her smile inviting, and I couldn't resist. She guided my fingers, showing me how to twist the strands into a tight, colorful cord. The act was meditative, each loop a small act of creation, and I felt a surge of connection, not just to Agnes, but to the countless women who'd woven before me, their hands shaping the fabric of this world. The braid complete, I held it up, its colors vibrant against the tavern's muted tones, and Agnes nodded approvingly. "Keep it," she said, pressing it into my hands. A reminder of what we make. Together, I slipped it into my pack, my heart swelling with gratitude. The tavern was teaching me that creation wasn't just about objects, it was about community, about the act of sharing something tangible in a world that could feel so fleeting. I returned to my bench, the noise swelling around me, and noticed Tobin watching a group of men playing a game of knucklebones. The bones clattered across the table, their clicks sharp against the hum of voices, and I leaned in, curious. "Want to try?" Tobin asked, handing me a set. I tossed them, my hands clumsy, and laughed as they scattered, earning cheers from the players. The game was simple, but it drew me into their circle, their laughter wrapping around me like a warm cloak dot as the night wore on. Gwenna called for a poetry exchange, a tradition new to me, but alive with possibility. "Speak from the heart," she said, her voice carrying over the crowd, and the ales on me for the best. The room hushed, and one by one, patrons stood, their words ranging from bawdy rhymes to quiet verses about lost loves and distant homes. A young man spoke, of a river that carried his dreams away, his voice breaking, and I felt tears prick my eyes. When my turn came, I stood, my knees trembling, and shared a poem I'd crafted as a girl about a star that fell to earth, searching for a place to shine. The words poured out, raw and unpolished, but the crowd listened, their silence a gift. When I finished, they clapped, and Gwenna slid a fresh mug my way, her nod a quiet seal of approval. I sat, my heart pounding, feeling the weight of their attention, the power of words to bind us across time and space. The poetry faded into laughter, and the tavern surged back to life. A group of traders started a dice game, their shouts drowning out Ellen's fiddle as she struck up another tune. I watched, caught between the urge to join and the need to simply be, to let this moment seep into me. The Heart's Rest was more than a place. It was a mirror, reflecting the raw, messy beauty of humanity. I saw it in the way a woman comforted, a drunk who'd lost his bet, in the way Tobin shared his carving knife with a boy barely old enough to hold it, in the way Gwenna's stern gaze softened when she thought no one was watching. This was a sanctuary where differences dissolved, where a wanderer like me could find a place at the table. I leaned back, my mug empty, and felt a stillness settle over me, a sense that I was part of something larger, something that would outlast. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced like spirits on the walls, and I thought of the lives that had passed through here. Merchants, pilgrims, thieves, all leaving their mark, their laughter and sorrows woven into the tavern's bones. I wondered about the hands that had built this place, the stories they'd told, the dreams they'd carried. The Heart's Rest was a living archive, its walls holding centuries of human connection, and I felt privileged to be part of it, even for a night. As the crowd thinned, I lingered, reluctant to break the spell. Tobin had drifted to another table. Ellen was packing her fiddle, and Gwenna was wiping down the counter, her movements steady and sure. I watched them, these strangers who'd become familiar, and felt a pang of gratitude so sharp it hurt. Outside, the night was quiet, the wind a soft whisper against the tavern's walls. I stepped into the cool air, needing a moment to breathe, to hold on to the feeling of belonging that had taken root in me. The stars glittered above, brighter here in the dales than I'd ever seen, and I thought of the poem I'd shared, of the star searching for its place. Maybe I was like that star, wandering but not lost, finding light in unexpected places. The Heart's Rest had shown me that life was richest when shared, that every laugh, every story, every woven braid was a thread in a larger tapestry. I returned. Inside, the warmth enveloping me once more, and settled back onto my bench, ready for whatever the night might bring. The hours blurred, a kaleidoscope of voices and faces, each one etching itself into my memory. I joined another round of knucklebones, my throws growing steadier, and laughed as a woman named Clara teased me for my beginner's luck. Later, I watched as Agnes taught a young girl to spin wool, her patience a quiet lesson in kindness. The tavern was a school of sorts, teaching me not just about games or crafts, but about the resilience of the human spirit. Here, in this smoky, raucous space, people found ways to thrive, to create, to connect, despite the hardships of their world. It was a revelation, one that made me see my own life differently, less as a solitary journey and more as a path intertwined. With others dark as dawn approached, the fire burned low and the crowd began to disperse. I stayed, my body heavy, but my heart light, reluctant to let go of this place. Gwenna caught my eye and smiled, a rare softness breaking through her stern facade. "You fit here, Lysa," she said, her words simple but heavy with meaning. I nodded, unable to speak, and felt a shift within me. The heart's rest had cracked open something inside, a hunger for connection, for creation, for the messy beauty of life. I knew I'd carry this night with me, a beacon for the roads ahead, a reminder that even in a hard world, there were places where the human heart could sing. The heart's rest glowed under the weight of another dawn, its timbers creaking softly, as if whispering secrets to the morning mist. I, Lysa, stirred on my bench, the straw beneath me prickling through my cloak, my body heavy with the residue of last night's revelry. The air was cooler now, the fire a smoldering nest of embers, but the tavern still hummed with a quiet vitality, a pulse that lingered even in its stillness. My heart felt different, stretched, tender, as if the stories, laughter, and music of the past 2 days had carved new paths within me. I'd come to the Yorkshire Dales seeking something intangible, a spark to ignite the dim corners of my soul, and the heart's rest had delivered more than I could have imagined. But as I sat up, rubbing sleep from my eyes, I sensed there was more to this place. Layers beneath the surface waiting to be uncovered, mysteries that called to the curious wanderer I was becoming. Gwenna was already at work, her silhouette sharp against the hearth's faint glow. She moved with the steady rhythm of someone who'd woven her life into this place, her hands deft as she stirred a pot of porridge, the scent of oats and honey curling through the air. I watched her, marveling at the quiet strength that held the tavern together, and when our eyes met, she beckoned me with a tilt of her head. "You've got a restless spirit, Lysa," she said, her voice low and knowing, as if she'd seen into the heart of me. "Come, help me with something." Intrigued, I followed her to a shadowed corner of the tavern, where a heavy curtain hung, its fabric worn but embroidered with faint threads of silver. She pulled it aside, revealing a narrow door set into the wall, its wood scarred and blackened by time. My breath caught a thrill of anticipation, tightening my chest. What lay beyond? A storage room? A forgotten relic? Or something more? Something that would unravel the deeper truths of this place? Gwenna pushed the door open, its hinges groaning in protest, and led me into a small chamber, the air thick with the musty scent of old wood and dust. A single candle flickered on a table, casting light across shelves lined with jars, bundles of herbs, and most striking a leather-bound ledger, its pages yellowed and curling. "This is the heart of the heart's rest," Gwenna said, her voice softening as she lifted the book with reverence. She opened it, revealing pages filled with names, dates, and brief notes, written in a dozen different hands. "Travelers who've passed through," she explained, her fingers tracing the ink. "Some left their mark. Others had it left for them. This place remembers." I leaned closer, my eyes scanning the faded script names like Ulrich, Edith, and Godric, alongside notes of journeys, trades, even prayers. One entry, dated decades ago, read, "For the soul of my brother lost to the sea." The words hit me like a stone, stirring a grief I hadn't known I carried, a longing for the stories behind these names. As Gwenna spoke, I learned the ledger was more than a record. It was a testament to the tavern's role as a sanctuary. During times of plague, it had sheltered the sick. During raids, it had hidden the hunted. The Heart's Rest was a place where the world's edges softened, where strangers could leave a piece of themselves and carry away a piece of others. I turned the pages, each one a whisper from the past, and felt a connection to those who'd come before me, pilgrims, merchants, outcasts, all drawn to this hearth like moths to a flame. Gwenna's eyes gleamed as she recounted tales of the tavern's history. A monk who'd etched a cross into the wall during a Viking raid, a widow who'd rebuilt the roof after a fire, a child born in the cellar during a storm. Each story was a thread in a tapestry that stretched across centuries, and I felt its weight settle over me, both humbling and exhilarating. Back in the main room, the tavern was waking, its rhythm slower but no less alive. I sat with a bowl of porridge, its warmth grounding me as I watched the morning unfold. Tobin, the carpenter, joined me, his hands cradling a mug of ale as he spoke of his latest project, a table for a family in Ripon. His pride in his craft was infectious, and I found myself asking questions, eager to understand the art of shaping wood. He laughed, offering to teach me more, but my attention drifted to Mara, the old woman I'd met the night before. She sat near the fire, her fingers working a spindle, spinning wool into thread with a grace that belied her age. "Come, lass," she called, her voice soft but insistent. I hesitated, then joined her, watching as she showed me how to twist. The fibers, her hands patient as mine, fumbled. The act was simple but profound, a link to the women who'd sat here before, their hands weaving the fabric of their lives. Mara's stories flowed as we worked, tales of the Dale's floods that had swept away homes, winters so harsh they'd frozen the river solid, and the tavern that stood through it all. She spoke of a time when the Heart's Rest had been a meeting place for rebels plotting against a cruel lord, their whispers hidden in the clatter of mugs. I listened, my fingers finding a rhythm with the spindle, and felt a surge of awe for this place. It wasn't just a tavern. It was a keeper of secrets, a stage where history played out in quiet moments and bold acts. I thought of the ledger, of the names etched within, and wondered what mine would say if I left my mark. Would it speak of a wanderer seeking meaning, or of a woman changed by the warmth of this hearth? The day stretched on, and I found myself drawn into a new ritual, one Gwenna hadn't mentioned before. As noon approached, a small group gathered by the hearth, their faces solemn yet serene. Ellen, the fiddler, set her instrument aside and led a communal prayer, her voice clear as a bell. For the road ahead, for the hands that feed us, for the hearts that hold us, she intoned, and the others murmured in response, their voices blending into a soft chant. I joined in, hesitant at first, but the words felt right, a way to honor the tavern's role as a haven. It was a moment of stillness in the chaos, a reminder that even in a place of revelry, there was space for reflection, for gratitude. I closed my eyes, letting the prayer sink in, and felt a peace I hadn't known I needed. After the prayer, the tavern stirred back to life, but I carried that stillness with me. I wandered to a window, its panes covered with stretched hide, and peered out at the dales, their hills rolling under a sky now clearing of clouds. The world outside felt vast, almost overwhelming, but the Heart's Rest was a tether, grounding me in its warmth. I returned to the main room, where a group of locals had gathered around a table, sharing a loaf of bread and a jug of mead. They invited me to join, and I did, tearing off a piece of the bread, its crust crackling under my fingers. The mead was sweet and strong, warming my throat, and as we ate, they spoke of their lives, farmers, weavers, a blacksmith who'd lost his forge to a fire. Their stories were ordinary yet profound, each one a piece of the puzzle that was the Heart's Rest. I found myself opening up, sharing a memory of my childhood. a night when my father had told me of a star that guided lost travelers home. The group listened, their faces softening, and I felt a shift within me, a loosening of the walls I'd built around my heart. The tavern was a place where stories weren't just told, they were lived, breathed, woven into the very air. I thought of the ledger again, of the names that had come before, and felt a longing to add my own, to be part of this endless chain. But that longing came with a question. Who was I becoming here? The Lysa who'd arrived, weary and uncertain, was fading, replaced by someone bolder, someone who saw the world not as a threat, but as a tapestry of possibilities. As evening fell, the tavern filled again, its energy swelling like a river after rain. Ellen's fiddle sang once more, her notes weaving through the laughter and shouts. I joined a group playing a game of riddles, each one a challenge that sparked laughter and groans. What runs but never walks, has a mouth but never talks? A young man asked, his eyes twinkling. I puzzled over it, my mind racing, and ventured, a river. The crowd cheered, and I grinned, caught up in the joy of the moment. Later, Gwenna called for a round of toasts, and I raised my mug, my voice steady as I offered thanks for the heart's rest, for its warmth and its secrets. The room roared in approval, and I felt a surge of belonging, a sense that I was part of something larger than myself. But beneath the joy, a restlessness stirred. The tavern was a haven, but it was also a mirror, reflecting parts of me I hadn't faced. I thought of the road ahead, of the journey still waiting, and felt a pang. Of conflict. Could I stay here, wrapped in the comfort of this place, or was I meant to carry its lessons into the world? I stepped outside, the night air cool against my skin, and sat by the stream I'd visited before. Its waters rushed over stones, a steady song that mirrored the tavern's pulse. I held the woven braid Agnes had given me, its colors bright in the moonlight, and thought of the prayer, the ledger, the stories. The heart's rest had shown me that every place holds a mystery, every person a story worth hearing. It was a lesson in curiosity, in courage, in the power of connection, and I knew it would shape me long after I left. Back inside, the fire had died to a soft glow, and the crowd was thinning. I sat with Mara, who shared a tale of a traveler who'd left a carved stone in the tavern's wall, a symbol of hope for those who followed. I touched the wall, searching for it, and found a small, smooth, shapeless star, etched faintly but unmistakably. My breath caught, a shiver running through me. Was it chance or something more? The heart's rest was full of such mysteries, small and large, and I felt privileged to have glimpsed them. As I settled onto my bench, the straw rustling beneath me, I knew this night had changed me. The tavern wasn't just a place, it was a crucible, forging new strength, new questions, new dreams. I closed my eyes, the hum of the heart's rest, lulling me, and felt ready for whatever came next, carrying its mysteries like a light in the dark. The heart's rest stood bathed in the soft light of dawn, its weathered timbers glowing like a beacon against the rolling hills of the Yorkshire dales. I, Lysa, lingered in the doorway, my pack slung over my shoulder, the weight of it both familiar and foreign after 4 days in this haven. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant heather, and the faint hum of the tavern's life-muffled voices. The clink of a mug drifted out to meet me. My heart was a tangled knot of gratitude and sorrow, each beat a reminder of the connections I'd forged here, the stories that had reshaped me. The heart's rest had become more than a stop on my journey. It was a mirror, reflecting a version of myself I hadn't known existed. A woman bold enough to embrace the unknown, to weave her voice into the chorus of others. Yet the road called, its whisper sharp and insistent, and I knew the time had come to step away, to carry the tavern's lessons into the world beyond its walls. Inside, the tavern was waking slowly. its rhythm softer than the raucous nights I'd come to love. Gwenna stood by the hearth, her hands steady as she stirred a pot of broth, her silver-streaked hair catching the fire's glow. She glanced up as I approached, her eyes sharp but softened by something unspoken, as if she sensed the weight of my impending departure. "Not staying forever, then?" she asked, her voice a low rumble, teasing yet tinged with understanding. I smiled, my throat tight, and shook my head. "The road's got plans for me," I said, the words feeling inadequate against the depth of what this place had given me. Gwenna nodded, her gaze lingering, and handed me a small cloth pouch, its contents rustling softly. "Rosemary and thyme," she said, "for courage and to remember us by." I clutched the pouch, its scent grounding me, and felt a surge of gratitude for her quiet wisdom, her ability to see the heart of a wanderer like me. I settled onto a bench, my last meal at the Heart's Rest, a simple one, bread still warm from the oven, its crust crackling under my fingers, and a bowl of broth rich with the flavors of the dales. As I ate, I watched the tavern come alive around me. Tobin, the carpenter, was mending a chair in the corner, his hands moving with the precision of a man who loved his craft. Mara, the old woman whose stories had woven magic into my nights, sat spinning wool, her spindle a blur of motion. Ellen, the fiddler, was nowhere to be seen, her absence a quiet ache, but the memory of her music lingered, a melody that had stitched itself into my soul. The tavern was a tapestry of lives, each thread vibrant and essential, and I felt privileged to have been woven into it, if only for a moment. As the morning unfolded, I joined a group of locals in a ritual I hadn't seen before, a communal map-making, a tradition Gwenna explained as a way to honor the journeys that crossed the Heart's Rest. A large parchment was spread across a table, its edges curling, marked with ink and charcoal sketches of roads, rivers, and towns. Each person added something, a curve of a path, a symbol for a village, a note about a storm, or a kind stranger. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the parchment, then drew a small star near the edge, marking the village I'd left behind. "For home," I said softly, and the others nodded, their eyes warm with understanding. The act was simple but profound, a way to map not just the land, but the connections we carried, the paths that led us to one another. I thought of the ledger Gwenna had shown me, the names etched in its pages, and realized this map was another kind of record, a living testament to the Heart's Rest as a crossroads of human experience. The map-making stirred something deep within, me a longing to leave my own mark, to ensure the tavern remembered me as I would remember it. I approached Tobin, who was now polishing a newly carved spoon, its handle etched with a delicate vine pattern. "For you," he said, pressing it into my hands, his grin wide and genuine. Something to carry on the road. I ran my fingers over the smooth wood, its warmth a reminder of his kindness, and offered him the woven braid Agnes had taught me to make, its colors bright against his calloused palm. "A fair trade," he said, his eyes twinkling, and I felt a pang of connection, a thread tying us across the miles that would soon separate us. I sought out Mara next, finding her by the fire, her hands still working the spindle. She smiled as I approached, her face a map of wrinkles and wisdom, and handed me a small skein of wool, soft and warm. "For your next journey," she said, her voice a gentle hum. In return, I gave her the crude bird I'd carved with Tobin, its edges rough but honest. She held it gently, as if it were a treasure, and I felt tears prick my eyes, the weight of her acceptance anchoring me. The exchanges were more than gestures. They were a ritual of farewell, a way to weave our stories together, even as I prepared to leave. I thought of the star I'd drawn on the map, of the names in the ledger, and felt a surge of purpose. The Heart's Rest wasn't just a place. It was a keeper of legacies, a space where every act, every gift, every story became part of something greater. I wandered to the window, the hide covering letting in slivers of light, and looked out at the dales, their hills rolling under a sky now streaked with gold. The world beyond was vast, its call both thrilling and terrifying, and I felt a tug of conflict within me. Could I leave this place, this warmth, this family I'd found? Or was it the leaving that would make its lessons real, that would carry its light into the unknown? Gwenna's voice broke my reverie, calling the tavern to a midday gathering. "A toast to those who pass through," she announced, raising a mug of ale. The room filled with voices, each person offering a wish for safe roads, for good harvests, for hearts unbroken. I raised my mug, my voice steady as I spoke. "To the heart's rest," I said, "for showing me what it means to belong." The crowd roared, their mugs clinking, and I felt a warmth spread through me, deeper than the ale. The toast was a bridge connecting me to the tavern's past and future, to the countless souls who'd stood where I stood, their hopes and fears echoing in the air. I sipped the ale, its bitterness softened by the moment, and knew this was a memory I'd carry forever. As the day wore on, I helped Gwenna with small tasks, hauling water from the well, sweeping the straw-strewn floor, each act a way to give back to the place that had given me so much. She told me more of the tavern's history as we worked, her voice a steady rhythm against the clatter of the day. "This place has seen wars, plagues, loves lost and found," she said, her eyes distant. "It stands because people need it, because we need each other." Her words struck deep, a reminder that the heart's rest was more than wood and straw. It was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the human need for connection in a world that could be so unforgiving. I thought of the monks who'd hidden in the cellar, the rebels who'd whispered plans, the travelers who'd left their names in the ledger, and felt a profound gratitude for being part of their story. By evening, the tavern filled again, its energy a familiar tide that lifted my spirits even as my departure loomed. Ellen returned, her fiddle singing a new tune, one that spoke of farewells and new beginnings. I joined a group by the fire, where Mara led a storytelling session, her voice weaving a tale of a woman who'd crossed the dales to find her lost love, only to discover her own strength. I listened, spellbound, and when my turn came, I shared. A story of my own, a tale of a girl who'd left her village seeking something more, only to find it in the laughter and warmth of strangers. The room was quiet, their eyes on me, and when I finished, they clapped, their approval a balm to my restless heart. I realized then that storytelling was the tavern's true magic, a way to make sense of the chaos, to find meaning in the fleeting. Decision to leave came like a tide, inevitable yet heavy. I stood outside as dusk settled, the sky a canvas of purples and blues, the heart's rest a silhouette against the hills. The stream nearby sang its endless song, and I sat by its edge, holding the rosemary pouch Gwen had given me, its scent, sharp and grounding. I thought of the map, the ledger, the star etched in the wall, and felt a clarity settle over me. The heart's rest had taught me that life is a tapestry of moments, each one a thread in a larger story. It had shown me the power of connection, the beauty of shared spaces, the courage it takes to step into the unknown. I wasn't the same Lysa who'd arrived, weary and unsure. I was someone new, someone shaped by the warmth of this place, ready to carry its light forward. I returned to the tavern, my steps slow, and found Gwenna waiting by the door. She handed me a small iron key, its surface worn smooth. "From the old door," she said, her voice soft. "A piece of the heart's rest. For you." I clutched it, my eyes stinging, and hugged her fiercely, her warmth a final anchor. Tobin and Mara joined us, their faces lit with quiet pride, and I gave them each a small stone I'd found by the stream, polished by years of water. "For remembering me," I said, my voice breaking, and they nodded, their hands closing. Over the gifts. Ellen played a final note, her fiddle's song of farewell that lingered in the air, and I stepped outside, the heart sign swaying above me, its antlers a silhouette against the stars. The Yorkshire dales stretched out, vast and wild, and I walked into them, my heart full of the heart's rest's lessons. It had taught me that belonging isn't bound to a place, it's carried in. The stories we share, the gifts we give, the moments we create together. As I crested a hill, I looked back, the tavern a speck of light in the darkness, and smiled. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready, armed with the courage and connection this place had given me. To anyone reading this, I say, seek your own heart's rest, your own haven of stories and souls. They're out there, waiting to change you, if you're brave enough to step inside. If this journey has stirred your heart or sparked a craving for more, subscribe to our channel. Let's uncover the wonders of history together, one story at a time. As I walked away from the heart's rest, the Yorkshire dales stretching vast and silent before me, I felt the tavern's pulse linger in my chest, a rhythm that would guide me long after its silhouette faded into the hills. My journey as Lysa, a wanderer seeking something unnamed, had led me to a place that was more than a refuge. It was a crucible, forging new strength, new questions, new dreams. The heart's rest was no mere stop on a road. It was a living tapestry, woven from the laughter, stories, and sorrows of countless souls who'd passed through its doors. In its smoky halls, I'd found not just shelter but a mirror, reflecting the parts of myself I'd long ignored: the courage to connect, the hunger to create, the resilience to face the unknown. As I crested a hill, the wind whispering promises of new horizons, I carried the tavern's lessons like a lantern, illuminating the path ahead. These lessons, universal and timeless, are not mine alone. They are gifts for anyone willing to listen, to seek, to step into the shared spaces where humanity thrives. The first lesson the Heart's Rest taught me was the power of connection. In a world that can feel fractured, where differences often divide, the tavern was a reminder that we are bound by our shared humanity. Merchants and farmers, fiddlers and weavers, all gathered under one roof, their voices blending into a chorus that transcended rank or origin. Each interaction, whether a shared meal, a woven braid, or a story told by firelight, was a thread in a larger fabric, stitching us together in ways that endured beyond the moment. This connection wasn't forced. It grew organically, rooted in the simple act of being present, of listening, of offering a piece of ourselves. It taught me that belonging isn't found in grand gestures, but in the quiet moments of understanding, the small acts of kindness that ripple outward. For us today, living in a world of screens and schedules, this lesson is a call to pause, to seek out our own taverns, places where we can sit with others, share our stories, and rediscover the joy of being part of something greater. Resilience was the second gift of the Heart's Rest. The tavern stood as a testament to endurance, its walls scarred by floods, fires, and wars, yet still standing, a beacon for the weary. Its history was one of survival, not through force, but through adaptation, through the stubborn refusal to let hardship extinguish its light. Gwenna's steady hands, Tobin's patient craft, Mara's timeless stories, they were all acts of defiance against a world that could be cruel. This resilience wasn't loud or boastful. It was quiet, woven into the daily rituals of tending the hearth, mending what was broken, and welcoming strangers despite the risks. It reminded me that strength isn't the absence of struggle, but the courage to keep going, to find meaning in the mundane, to rebuild when the world crumbles. For those of us facing our own challenges, be it loss, uncertainty, or the grind of daily life, this lesson is a lifeline. It urges us to stand firm, to find our own hearths, and to trust that even in the darkest winters, There is warmth waiting to be kindled. The third lesson was the beauty of curiosity. The Heart's Rest was a place of questions, each corner holding a mystery, each stranger a story waiting to unfold. From the ledger's faded names to the star etched in the wall, the tavern invited me to look deeper, to seek the truths hidden beneath the surface. It taught me that curiosity is more than a fleeting impulse. It's a way of being, a lens that transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. Every riddle shared, every map drawn, every prayer murmured was an act of exploration, a step into the unknown that enriched not just the mind but the soul. This curiosity sparked a transformation in me, turning a wanderer into a seeker, someone who saw the world not as a threat but as a canvas of possibilities. For readers today, this lesson is a challenge to approach life with open eyes, to ask questions of the people and places around us, to embrace the mysteries that make us human. It's a reminder that the world is full of heart's rests, waiting for those brave enough to step inside and wonder at these lessons' connection. Resilience, curiosity are the heart of the Heart's Rest story, but they are also the heart of ours. They speak to the universal human experience, the need to find meaning in a world that can be both beautiful and brutal. The tavern showed me that life is richest when we share it, when we stand firm against the storms, when we dare to ask what lies beyond the familiar. It taught me that every journey, no matter how uncertain, is a chance to weave our own tapestry, to leave a mark that others might find, to carry a light that others might follow. As I walked into the dales, the tavern's glow fading behind me, I felt a profound gratitude for this truth. The Heart's Rest wasn't just a place. It was a philosophy, a way of living that could guide us through any wilderness. For anyone reading this, I offer a final reflection. Seek your own heart's rest. It might be a coffee shop where strangers share smiles, a park where stories unfold under the trees, or a quiet moment with a friend where the world feels whole. These places exist, not as relics of the past, but as living spaces where we can connect, endure, and wonder. They are the hearths where we forge our resilience, the tables where we weave our connections, the corners where we uncover our curiosities. The Heart's Rest taught me that life is a journey of moments, each one a chance to shine, to belong, to grow. So step out, brave heart, and find your tavern. Listen to its stories, share your own, and let its light guide you forward. This journey through the Heart's Rest has been more than a tale of a medieval tavern. It's a reminder of what makes us human, of the strength and beauty we find when we come together. If this story has stirred your soul, ignited your curiosity, or inspired you to seek your own connections, I invite you to join us for more. Subscribe to our channel, and let's keep uncovering the wonders of history, the stories that light our way. Your support fuels our passion for creating tales like these, and together we can keep the hearth glowing, one story at a time.